Oh, there we go. I didn't even have my face on the screen there. All right. And why were those things important to me? So uh, this is again a bit of a different type of presentation from some of my demo drawings, but there's going to be a little show and tell too. I kind of debated with myself whether I was going to actually do this because it sounds like it's a lot about me, and there's a bit of me in here. But what I'd really like to do is to kind of have you think, okay, don't just think about it as me. Think about this as a young child growing up, and there's things I can take notes from that maybe I can apply to my child or a child that I know of. So, all right, let's get going on this little art journey. So, feel free to ask questions. I'm going to try to watch my comments as best I can, but let's see. We're gonna go that way with the. Let's see, am I doing this? Make sure everything's correct here. There we go. Okay. For some reason I clicked and it didn't respond. So interesting day so far. All right. So my let's see if I can get my layers in the right order here. My art school days started out. I've got a bunch of photos on the side here I'm going to kind of put into my Photoshop program as we go along here. So back in these days, I remember drawing as a young child as soon as I could pick up a pencil, and my drawings, of course, back then were pretty simple and stuff. I remember, doodling on the wall and just picking up a pencil and having fun sketching, and so that was a lot of fun, and got in trouble for it too, but. So those were fun memories of being a child that young. But it was during those times in grade school, in particular, that comic strips and Peanuts comic strips in particular caught my attention, and so I found myself drawing a dog that looked something like this. Quite a lot. I haven't drawn, well, I really haven't tried to draw Snoopy out of my imagination in quite a long time, but Snoopy was an important cartoon character in my life, and there was encouragement in the sketches that I did and the drawings that I did, and so just that little, probably most people didn't pay attention or think about it in those days, that look what he's doing, he's drawing cartoons. But those were important days for me because it was the foundation of what would come later on. So parents, take notes, even in some of those little things, because they can turn into other things. And so those little things can be important. Well, it was also in those days that there were other things that caught my attention too. And this is a drawing that I did a number of years ago, so it's not real old, but King Kong. And then there was artwork like this, that I had a poster of this that I ordered when I was a child. It was very evolutionary in nature. In fact, a lot of these things here are very evolutionary in nature. But they fascinated me as a kid. And so I found myself not only looking at them, but also drawing them. And so didn't have a lot of good creation materials back then when I was a little kid, but those particular drawings captured my imagination. And so I found myself really soaking up the images. Maybe not so much the teaching about them. I'm sure back at that stage, millions of years, I didn't bat an eye at that type of a concept. Dinosaurs were dinosaurs, and that was true as far as I knew back then. So one thing I should say too in those early days was that in spite of the evolution and all of that sort of stuff, there was something else that became very important in my life, or at least it was a start of something that would become very important in my life. And it was this. My parents raised me going to church, and it was at a Wednesday night Bible study church meeting that the kids were being watched by a lady by the name of Ruth Connor, and she was teaching us some lessons, and the adults were in their thing doing their Bible study, and I I received Christ as my Savior at one of Ruth's presentations, and so I became a Christian during this time. So I wanted you to keep that in mind as we're talking about some of these formative years of mine. Well, it was, let's see, during those years too that there were all kinds of opportunities for me to use my artwork. Well, let me back up a little bit and say that I was drawing dinosaurs and monsters a lot, and and back then it was stuff like this. I remember drawing those eyes with the angry look on them. This almost kind of a cartoony Disney eye, and so my dinosaurs looked a lot like that, and so did the other monsters that I drew back in those days. And they were just, little boy-like things. Girls tend to be a little different in that, and boys like destruction and things blowing up and all kinds of stuff. Like, it was just silly dinosaur monster type stuff. And so that was my interest, and that's what really kept me drawing a lot during those years. So you might look at it and go, well, that was silly stuff, not important. Even my teachers would look at my stuff and they would say, oh, I think they recognized some talent and ability or skill or whatever. But at the same time, they were kind of like, well, why can't you draw something more constructive? And so I've shared that story quite a lot with a number of people, and not so much to say, my teachers were bad people, because they weren't. But flavor and such can get in the way sometimes. And so as a parent, I want you to stop and ask yourself, some of these things that my child is drawing, are they right or wrong? Is there a moral reason why they shouldn't be drawing this? There's so many things for a child these days to be drawing to capture their imagination. So many vehicles, media outlets, and you've got the internet and all kinds of stuff these days to grab a child's attention. And so ask yourself, is this good or bad? Is it something that I want my child to draw? Or is this offensive in some way? Is there a Christian reason why my child shouldn't be drawing this? Or can it fall into the category of, yeah, I see what my child's drawing, it's not my cup of tea, I'd prefer they draw something else that I like, but if this thing that's not my interest, but it's not bad, there's kind of gray here, but if it's something that keeps them drawing, it's something that energizes them and excites them, try to discern that out. But I would say try to be encouraging too, because my encouragement to you as a parent is, again, to pay attention to those things that excite your child, that light their creative fire, and take notes on that. Find out, learn your child, study your child. And those things, if they pursue this area, can be very instructive, and you can become a more effective teacher or a more effective parent encourager for your young art student that maybe you don't connect with them on the art level. You're not an artist yourself, but for some reason they are. And so these are handy little notes for you as a parent to encourage your child. So again, I was drawing dinosaurs and monsters, and my teachers, probably even my parents, they weren't too crazy about it, but I was having a heyday, and it was a lot of fun. And there were also poster contests back then that I was entering. I grew up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and so there was these UP potato contests, and they were pretty simple. I mean, there was just some lettering, and then I would draw a couple potatoes and probably put a face on them and a clever slogan and some more lettering or something. They were so simple, grade school artwork, but I was getting medals, or not medals, but ribbons, and was winning things. And so that was encouraging to me too. And as a young artist, that helped me love artwork even more. I was really, really looking forward to these competitions and these contests, and so find opportunities in your area for that sort of thing. If there's a county fair, or if there's some library that has an art competition, or there's a way to display artwork or something, check out those things and see if you can encourage your child, get them activated, motivated in those things. Well, from there I went on to junior high, and the junior high world really opened up a lot of things for me because one, I had more art classes instead of just the small grade school that I grew up in. And so I remember drawing my first caricature at my my junior high art junior high art class, and it was just drawing George Washington off a quarter. This wasn't the drawing, but it looked more simple than this, but this is basically what I drew. I remember this big nose on George Washington, and it was just a lot of fun. Now, I had been looking at a lot of this kind of a magazine back then, and so people probably would say, hey, that's not real healthy, and there probably were some questionable things. I think things have changed these days where Mad magazine is out of business now for the most part, but some of the stuff is even harsher and more radical now than it was back then. So anyway, so I had a collection of these, and I loved some of the artists from here. And so I was copying their artwork, and I would encourage you to, have your child copy artwork, and not to say it's their own, but that's a good exercise to hone their skills and enhance their abilities and create the eye of an artist and how you see things. So I was looking at this magazine a lot, and I had a whole collection of them. And there was a contest that came across the way, and it was called Smile America Contest, and it was just for dental health. And so I entered my contest poster, and this is the one that I drew. This is a photo of the actual contest poster. So it had Jimmy Carter on it, and I used Mad Magazine reference for Jimmy's face. And so again, the artwork isn't that great, but I had a blast doing it, and I actually won the contest. And they actually sent a copy of this poster to the president, and I remember getting this letter from the White House, and my mom all excited driving to the school and showing me this thing. And I'm sure it was very generic and all of that, but it was big thing. It was a big thing for us. And and then later on, I remember drawing a lot of the Incredible Hulk. There was the TV show, and again, it was things that I loved. You might not think it's all that great, but I thought the show was pretty good, and I still love it to this day. But it's those things that energize you, that keep your interest, and so my scope of interest is widening a bit, and my abilities of drawing human faces and just gaining a knowledge of other things was growing. Well, after that came high school, and I don't have a lot of samples of high school artwork here. I remember my experience with watercolors started coming around because my art teacher in high school was a very good watercolor artist, and so the chances for me to do something different were there. And I remember doing pen and ink watercolors of a snow leopard and a crocodile from National Geographic magazine. I was copying those photographs and painting and loving doing even realistic wildlife type artwork. And in high school too, I also started doing drafting artwork for drafting class. Now, I didn't plan on being an architect. I wasn't gonna draft houses for a living, but it was art related. I got to use the drawing boards that they had in art class. There was the the machines on the tables that I got to use and get experience with. And then there was lettering in that particular class. And so I learned how to letter very well. And there's the different pencils and pens and stuff that you learned how to do. So all of those skills were very, very important. And I'm building my muscle memory in my hands for dexterity. And I had graphic arts class and anything art related, even pottery, ceramics. I took those classes too, because I wanted to have a good knowledge of how those things worked. Now, parents, again, take notice. I wasn't going to my parents and saying, what classes should I take? I was selecting these by myself. I was really motivated and heading in that direction. And I'm sure my parents were kind of like, well, what's he going to do? You know, but at the same time, they did want to encourage me too. And so they were doing things that they could to encourage me. Now, I want to stop here and say this, because there's something very, very important here. This is kind of a theme for the day too. How many of you have seen those? And I'm going to try to get there we go. These little ads in magazines that they kind of look like this. And then there's, I don't know, there's like a turtle here or something, you know, some kind of a character. It's a pirate or a clown or, you know, whatever it is. And so, and then they want you to, you know, draw Dopey the turtle or something like that. Art instruction schools, Minneapolis, Minnesota. And then a lot of us would draw those drawings just to, you know, say, hey, look what I did. And you'd kind of compare it to the magazine, but it would never go any farther than that. Well, my parents saw those ads, and I can't remember how it all started, but they actually bought the course for me. And so these lessons were shipped to my house, and it was all correspondence. And so you get the lesson, and it would be on a paper with the instructions in it, and then they would tell you, okay, you got to draw this, or this was the art exercise that you needed to do. And the hard part for me was it was a lot of words. It was a lot of text, and you had to read, and then you would go and, you know, produce the artwork. Well, for me, that was just not my style. Years later, I'm finding out I think I'm a bit dyslexic, and so reading for me wasn't super easy. And that style it was tedious and non-inspiring for me. It just didn't work, and I actually didn't finish the course, to my regret these days. And so I just say that my parents tried. They really wanted to provide for me as an artist, but this one didn't work. And again, no fault of theirs, but we found out that this was not my learning style. This was not a good way for me to learn. Maybe if someone had kind of helped me with some of that and went over it with me, then I would have been a little bit more motivated. And I'm not saying that they should have, but I'm just looking back with a rearview mirror, 2020 hindsight type of thing, and saying that, again, how your child learns is important. Find out how they best learn, and then try to incorporate that information into how you're teaching them, or the materials that you obtain for them, and then maximize that knowledge into, you know, productive and useful learning for them. So the art instruction schools thing is a great course. Many artists have done wonderfully with it. I was not one of them. So, and then we've got some notes here. Hey, Katie, God bless you, brother. Yeah, let's see. Sorry to tune in late. Hey, just glad you're here. And let's see. She also says, thank you for sharing. Appreciate you being open about this, and appreciate the encouragement on this. Well, thank you. And I appreciate your encouragement too. So let's see, where was it? High school. Again, just took every art class that I could. A lot of encouragement there. High school was a good experience. I could tell lots of other stories about that. It was right during my high school years, and then after high school, that I was working at the roller rink in our hometown, and I ended up doing a ton of artwork for them. And so I developed this comic strip called The Adventures of Roller Dog. And you're not going to have time to read this as I'm sharing this, but maybe you can stop this later on a replay and look at some of these comic strips. This is probably one of the first comic strip features that I ever produced in my life, and game changer for me, because it was my first experience meeting deadlines. I did this every week ended up being for the newspaper. The roller rink paid for these as an advertisement for the rink, and they appeared in the Saturday paper. And so I remember running to the paper box and getting these out and just enjoying the fact that something that I had produced was in the paper. And so I wrote these and drew these, and then I did artwork for the roller rink too, advertising artwork for posters and calendars and all kinds of stuff. So great experience. Again, look for those opportunities that are around for your child to just get experience. Now, this was a Christian roller rink, and by that time, I had started to think about Christian stuff and my artwork starting to kind of merge. Back in the days of my early childhood learning artwork and being in church, I never really connected that those things could go together. And so one of my encouragements to you is to, when your child starts drawing, to get that perspective into their mind, their young minds. Start talking about God as our creator, and he's the master artist, and anything that we do imitates him in the respect of we're creating, and we have this desire to create. And then the things that we draw, we're really drawing the stuff that he's made. There's nothing that we draw that's original. It's all based on things that are already existing because God spoke them into existence. And so putting that concept of honoring God with your artwork and worshiping him with artwork can add a whole new dimension to your child if you keep emphasizing that and encouraging that and helping them to think that through. That can be a very, very powerful thing. And I think it's a much needed thing for your child to associate artwork with God. And so when they use artwork later on in life, when things get a little less friendly sometimes with the subject matters and things, maybe that will be something that will help them out, is, yes, I need to honor God with my artwork. So there's my samples of roller dog artwork that I made when I was during high school and after high school years. And then it was right after those years that I went to art school. And so I went to a non-Christian school out in New Jersey called the Joe Kubert School of Cartoon and Graphic Art. And now I was a Christian that was determined to honor Christ with what I did in my artwork. And so even though it was a non-Christian school and there were evidences of that every day at the school, I'm not saying it was a bad thing or it was an abnormal thing. I'm just saying that non-Christian schools just don't naturally reflect Christian principles all the time. And especially in the art realm, things can get kind of dicey. And so the subject matter, the rules, the boundaries, the things that they will do versus what a Christian school will do are two different things a lot of the times. But I started interjecting Christian principles and ideas into my artwork, into my assignments that the whole class would see. And so I had a lot of fun witnessing in that way to my classmates. You know, here's a cartoon that talks about premarital sex. So it's a moral thing, not necessarily a overtly Christian thing. But again, they were getting a taste of who I am and what my thinking is. And then later on, I was doing assignments that were like this, where it's, okay, there's a bit more of a content here. And the fun thing about art school was that we would do these assignments, say on a Monday, and then we didn't have that class again until next Monday. So we had kind of all week to work on it, sort of, but we had other assignments as well. But the following Monday, then we would all put our assignments up on the board, and then the class would have to tell the students what their artwork was communicating. And so you get an idea of how successful or not successful you were in what you were saying. So I would create images like this, and then my classmates would have to tell me what I was thinking. And the image here is communicating that that there's a Christmas, the real reason in the backgrounds, and then the real reason for Easter, the resurrection of Christ. death and resurrection. And then there's things that are kind of getting in the way and obscuring those things and kind of trying to get our attention. And so that's the theme of this particular image. And so so those were the types of things. I had even more overtly Christian things back in my art school days too. And the funny thing is, being a non-Christian place, they still let me do that. And I was so thankful that they were open to. There was one particular assignment that I did where Joe Kubert kind of pulled me aside and he said, "Hey, what's up with this?" But it wasn't accusatory. It was, "Hey, did you know that certain people can take this a certain way?" And then I said, "Oh, I could tell you about that some other time." But anyway, God was gracious, and I was able to do that, and it really lit my fire for communicating Christian things to an audience. So those were very, very valuable years for my my Christian ministry in the future that would happen. So let's see. Then after I left art school, I started dabbling in Christian gag cartoons, which that never really took off. And these were a couple that I submitted to a Christian magazine, and I can see why they didn't go anywhere. But there was an attempt. I'm trying to get my feet. Where's my place? Where's my direction? And so gag cartoons wasn't necessarily it, although I would do something like that later on. Here's another bit of advice too, as far as something that I had done that may apply. I did artwork for our local newspaper. I approached them. I went to them and I said, "Hey, I'd like to do editorial cartoons for you guys," and they said, "Sure, that'd be great. We'll pay you $7.50 for each cartoon." And I don't have any samples of those particular cartoons, but this is artwork from a calendar that I did for the local paper that kind of give you a flavor of maybe some of the cartoons that I was doing back at that point. But I was doing editorial cartoons for the paper for $7.50 a piece, which was quite the ripoff. They were taking advantage of me in a sense, but I weighed it out and I thought, this is experience. I'll get samples out of it, and I think that will be a good thing all by itself. Well, I also got exposure. And so the exposure that I got from being known as the artist that did cartoons for the local paper ended up getting me lots of other jobs. And so that's an encouragement to you too. Some people are going to come to you, possibly your child, and say, "Hey, I'd like to have some artwork. I don't have any money to pay you, but you'll get exposure." Sometimes that's something that's, no, I'll pass because you're kind of taking advantage. But there are times where that sort of a thing can be profitable and a good deal, and it gives you experience. And so weigh those things out. Don't let people take advantage of you, because a lot of people want to get free artwork. They don't want to pay for it. But you decide whether that may be of value or not. So those types of jobs at the Mining Journal then led to things like this, where I was commissioned by the local university, Northern Michigan University, to draw caricatures of some very important people. I did Christmas cards and portraits of the presidents of the university for a number of years. And then Ernie Harwell, who was the voice of the Detroit Tigers, came to town, and I was commissioned to do a caricature of him, honoring him. And I was invited to the dinner, and he unveiled it and came back and shook my hand and autographed this nice photograph of both of us together. And so artwork can provide some amazing opportunities. It's a fun field to be in, but it's also very difficult, and it's got its darker moments. But so that was very valuable for me. But through all of this, I have been taking notes on things that work for me as an artist. And so I've found out a few things here too, that that there are places and times where I get inspired. There's artwork that I really, really like. And so I try to recreate those situations when I'm coming up with an idea. Driving a car, walking, taking a shower, those types of things, for some reason, ignite my imagination and my mind, and I'm able to come up with ideas better. And here, let me do this. There we go. And so my encouragement to you is to find out what those things are for your child. What makes the creative light bulbs go on? Take note of those things, because that simple information can help you if you will be willing to use it and leverage it later on when there's assignments coming, or when they need to be producing something. Take note. If like for me, if it's been thought in the past, I'm sure that if Dan's not sitting at his desk in an office, he's not producing artwork. And so if I'm seen walking around, then maybe it looks like I'm goofing off, or I'm not doing my job. Where it's just the opposite. I'm being more effective walking around and thinking of the concepts that I will have to use and do and produce when I'm at the desk then. So getting to know how you operate, how your child operates, is just so very key to things going well and being able to teach. So now I have a little artist in my house, and where'd my layers go? My palette is kind of okay. Here we go. All right, I'm going to share this with you. I have a little artist, or had a little artist in my house a number of years ago. This is my daughter, Hannah, and she is a little artist herself, but a little different than Dad. So I haven't been pushing her to be like me, because I want her to be like her. And what's her interest, and how has God wired her different from me? She's got different interests than I do. We think a lot the same sometimes, and so she's taken notes on what works for me, and so I've been paying attention. Same for her. And then as a parent, one of the things that you can do that's something that really nobody else can do like you can, is how you encourage your child and how you brag about them, and not don't get too prideful and boastful and all that sort of stuff, but be excited when you show the artwork to other people, and do that in front of them. And that encouragement is priceless, and something that they'll remember for their whole lives. And so I've tried to do that. We've taken pictures of Hannah's artwork as a young child, and so there's so much I could say about that arena. And so I'm trying to go through and employ some of these things that I've been telling you today. A couple other things that I would strongly encourage is there's a verse in the Bible. It's Proverbs 4:23, and it basically says, "Guard your heart, for out of it flows the issues of life." I think what we put in matters, and so there's so many things these days that are fighting for your child's attention. And back in the days where I was drawing dinosaurs and monsters, those were just silly dinosaurs and monsters. There was no blood and guts and mass murderers and sexual perversion and all of those things that a lot of kids these days are exposed to on a daily basis through TV or the internet or stuff like that. So when you're learning what your child likes and what they're heading towards, guide them. And if there's some of that horrible stuff, be gentle and firm, but let them know, okay, that's not okay, and find out what they like, but is in a scope of acceptableness. And again, that acceptableness doesn't have to be something that's your cup of tea, but try to keep them on track with a pure heart, with a guarded heart, and that will be something that will serve them well in their later years as well. So parents, we need to be vigilant. There's so many things that our kids can get access to today without our knowledge. So be in all the things that your kids are in themselves. Okay. So I hope that some of those things have been encouraging to you and have been helpful to you. Now, I said there was going to be an announcement at the end of today's session, and we've gone over a little bit, but that's okay. Today is actually my last cartooning lessons live with Dan Lietha on Fridays. the ministry is needing me to spend more time drawing slides for speakers, and so my time, I think, is going to be more maximized for that sort of thing. And so I need to kind of whittle out a few things, and so we're going to be working on what that is in the days ahead. And one of the things that I think I can spare is doing these lessons live on Friday. It takes a bit of my time, and I can be producing artwork for the speakers. And so that's the bad news. The good news is, though, that I'd like to kind of continue doing this sort of thing on my own time. So if you look for me, Dan Lietha, cartoonist, illustrator on YouTube, I have my own channel there. So check me out and on YouTube, and then maybe we can continue some of this in a different way. But as far as my time for Reasons for Hope, I need to be more focused on doing things that serve the other speakers, and I really want to help the ministry grow and to look better and sparkle and be more effective communicators visually. So that's the thing that I love to do, and the Lord has been so very gracious to allow me to do that over the years, and I'm still at it, and I still want to excel at doing that. So please pray for us, pray for me in this regard. And it has been a fun little treat for me on Fridays to present these cartooning lessons and maybe some information that would help bless you in the area of creativity and artwork and cartooning. So thank you so much for being part of my audience, and leave a note down at the bottom in the comments and let me know what these messages have meant to you. And I would be encouraged by that, and so would some of the staff members at Reasons for Hope. So, hey, Katie, thank you so much for your presence in these days, and thank you for your kindness. So with that being said, the Lord bless you this weekend. Have a blessed day. Thank you so much, and see you later from Reasons for Hope. Bye.